All right, we're live. Welcome to the RG DFS Tournament Takes podcast presented by Yahoo. I am your host, Chris Kirkwood, screen name Kirk D's, here with my co-host, my boy, the head honcho over at Occupy Fantasy site you guys should definitely check out. It's Brian Jester at Brian Jester FF. What's going on, my man? We are back for week 10.
Chris, what's up, man? Good to see you. Again, the season's flying by. I know you and I both had moderately successful weeks last week, so I'm excited to keep it rolling.
Yep. Yeah, Yahoo. I was trying to tell you through beginning of the show. I didn't even remember who I played, but I did remember what happened. I remember the turnout. It was a disgusting run out for me. I was smooth sailing all day per usual. And I had the big hitters to take me home at the end with Tyreek and Eckler still going. And really all I needed, and I had Christian Kirk, who, man, did you see that touchdown pass he threw? But they stopped at the one. Like,
yep.
That I would have won. I would have crushed if that even just held up. But really, I just needed Christian Kirk and Christian Kirk and Eckler combined to beat Devontae Smith. And that touchdown, that did not work for me at the end. And also had the same thing in the other situation with Tyreek Hill. And so both of those didn't work out. It was just gross. But I dropped. I had a good week. I won a decent amount, but I gave up a lot on that touchdown pass that was kind of tilting.
I mean, we're greedy, right? We always want more. Yeah, winning week isn't enough. We got to.
No, I just want a fair run out at the end. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to. I don't want these gross situations. Like, they keep happening. But we're crying over spilt milk here. So, we're back week 10. This should be a decent slate, I think. Although I'm worried that it might be kind of like too chalky of a slate because. Way a lot of this news is breaking. We've got a bunch of injury news that's been coming in. They got like the main stuff is like Kamara is looking like he's on track to not play. Which would open up like a gross Mark Ingram play. We already have Chase Edmonds down, which opens up like James Conner, and then who else
Nick
is
Chubb,
that? The Nick Chubb, certainly the going down with COVID and Kareem Hunt already out. So Dearness Johnson just looks like that's going to be like an auto play where you're just going to have to play it. I think I don't even think I could fade it. And a lot more on the way. I'm sure we got the Patriots situation. Looks like Harris is out, and then Stevenson is looking bad. He was supposed to practice today, but didn't practice today, so that's never a good sign. It is gross weather here in New England today. Anyways, all right, so we've got 11 games, 3 games this week with over 50-point totals. That's Atlanta and Dallas with a 54.5. Cowboys are favored by 9.5 after a horrible game. That was another crazy game last week. Man, they just
week 9 was crazy in general.
Yeah,
so much chaos.
Nobody came out to play, like except like the Jags. And then the second highest total is the Vikings at Chargers. I like that game. It's 53.5-point total. We got Tom Brady and the Bucks going to Washington and their dead last ranked passing defense, 51-point total. I wrote down here an honorable mention for a game right under that 50-point total is Seattle at the Packers. Packers getting Aaron Rodgers back, minus 3.5 points. Seattle getting Russ back. So that could at least be a formula for a game to go off. So I certainly have interest there. Then we've got, one team I wrote down with a 29-point team total, large favorite, which is the Colts against the Jags. We've got some baby missing your birth of child narrative for Carson Wentz going. I saw Big T was tweeting about that. I mean, that Big T will he'll any excuse to play Carson Wentz. But all right. So the three up and pace games, I always look at the blitz game factors to see who's projected for the most plays. And then I always cross correlate it with Brandon Thorne's article over on Establish the Run. So it looks like there's three up and pace spots. The first would be Atlanta at Dallas. Makes sense for the high total. Blitz most plays there. Cowboys games average second most points. Then another game here is Tampa at Washington. Tampa games average the league's most combined plays. TB12 is passing at the highest rate while games are close. Washington football team, as I mentioned, has a horrible passing defense, 31st DVOA versus the pass. And then the game I also like is the Chargers hosting the Vikings. Chargers pass at the second highest rate while games are close. This is a game that certainly, plays to both teams' strengths. Minnesota has a bunch of injuries on their defensive secondary and just defense overall, which sets up nicely for Herbert. And then the Chargers don't really guard the run. They can't stop the run. So it sets up, even though we've had a lot of crazy talk, a lot of crazy situations with Dalvin Cook and all of that stuff, looks like won't be suspended or anything like that and will be playing. So certainly looks like a good spot there. But those are the marquee games. What we're going to do is we're going to list our top values at quarterback, followed by our main preferred plays, and we're going to bump it over to wide receiver, our running back, and then tight ends, and then we'll give some stacks along the way. Let me do a little housekeeping. So most of you probably already play at Yahoo or listening to this, but if you aren't, Yahoo is the place to play. I always preach this every week, lower rake. There's always overlay to be found. New this year, they've added the single game NFL slates, which I'm having a bunch of fun, and everybody just plays the same lineup. So there's definitely some exploitative play you can seize over there. I've been having a good time, been doing pretty well with it. So I love that. They also have the $1 Million Baller, $20 this week with 200K again overlay. I always check immediately. Are they going to put another 200K in the pot? And we are at week 10 and they still do it. They're still doing it. So kudos to Yahoo. That's a management fee of negative 25%. So they are losing 25% on that contest. So that is the contest that everybody should be playing first. I play it. I still haven't had a big sweat. I've had, a couple of decent finishes, but nothing crazy where I actually had a chance. So hopefully this is the week for either me or you in the baller, Brian.
I feel it, man. I feel it. So I'm not one to Babe Ruth it and call my shot, but this week everything is lining up for an amazing week with 3 to 4 easy to identify game stacks, game environments. And, my best weeks have always come when we get cheaper running backs to jam in, like we're likely going to get this week. So I'm super excited and I have a big feeling about this week. So, I can't wait for it.
Love to hear it. Call your shot, man. That's usually, what it is too. Like when I make a lineup and I get like this weird feeling, like I already know I'm gonna win, and like whenever and like when I know I'm gonna win, like those are the days I do crush. And it's like when I don't feel it, it's usually ends up bad. So,
I mean, you can feel it, right? When you're building a lineup, right? If it comes easily and naturally, you're like, wow, this was too easy. And then there are other weeks where it's so difficult to build lineups, you can't get it to work right, and you know the outcome. So
yeah, and you're gonna end up struggling somewhere. Yeah. All right, let's start back at quarterback here. I wrote down some gross top plays. I'm probably not going to play any of them. I mean, top values is what I'm saying. Probably not. I'm just trying to search for the value. So the first one I wrote down is disgusting. I wrote down Teddy Bridgewater, just from a value point per dollar projection. He works. He's only $21. Philly is the 21st DVOA versus the pass, their defense. So teams certainly can pass on them. Philly is giving up north of 80% completion percentage over the last 4 weeks. And Teddy Bridgewater is an accurate passer, if anything else. I don't really like it, but it does. He does have most of his weapons back now. Judy looks good. There's always Tim Patrick actually was playing well last week. There's always Cortland Sutton, and then Noah Fant is returning from injury. So has all of his weapons. This team could they just crushed Dallas last week. They could be rolling at the right time here a little bit, and so I can see it. I'm probably not going to play it. I'll play it in the baller GBP, but it probably won't be my main lineup unless something weird goes on in my brain. The other one is even worse. I wrote down Big Ben, $22. I'm not playing him. I'm just saying it right now. But he's a top value. Lions are 29th DVOA versus the pass. But give me Najee Harris all day. But I had to write down somebody. According to our notes pre-show, this is what we do. And then third one I could play. I could get behind this one for my last value is Matt Ryan. He's $25. Dallas, 29th in DVP to QBs. He's been playing well recently. He's kind of rolling multiple TDs in 6 of his last 7 games. Problem is it's a scary wide receiver core. Now Kyle Pitts is going to be a very popular play at tight end, so we don't have a bunch of we don't have all the big guys, the big guns that we typically have with Kelsey or Waller to even worry about. So he's going to be extremely popular. It makes an easy pairing there. Cordero Patterson is also priced still reasonably, and he for a running. I mean his receiving numbers are just insane for a running back. So I can get behind that. But those are my 3. Do you echo the same ones, or do you have anything different?
No, so I wrote down Bridgewater. I wrote down Ryan as well. And generally, I wouldn't want to play a 10-point underdog at quarterback, especially one who's not mobile like Ryan. However, I will say the game total is going up. And Randy Gregory went down in practice this week, one of the Cowboys' best edge rushers. And anytime we can get reduced pressure on a quarterback, especially one who's not mobile with a poor offensive line like Matt Ryan, that always helps his floor and ceiling combination. So I like that. But as we'll get to in the running back section, there's so much value at other positions this week that I don't think we need to pay down at quarterback, which means you don't have to play Bridgewater. You won't have to play Ryan in your main lineup. I wrote down Taylor Heineke as another value too. He's run more in games where they've trailed, and I imagine they'll trail in this game against Tampa. But for me, I think the best play, points per dollar, is Justin Herbert at 31 if you're not paying up for one of the stud guys.
Yep, that's my main preferred QB play. Totally agree. He's $31. It just he just helps your overall build so easily. He gives us a little bit of everything what we want. He's gone for over 30 fantasy points twice already, over 40 once, right? So we know there's a ceiling there with him. This is a game environment that should be up in pace that we want to attack. We both talked about. He had a rushing TD last week. He is a capable rushing quarterback. He does not run at the same percentages as like a Jalen Hurts or any of our main Josh Allen or any of our main running plays typically, but he is certainly capable of it and does rip off some big chunk yardage at times as well. So that's nice to have in the back pocket. The Vikings D is decimated at the moment. They're missing Harrison Smith, most likely who went down with COVID game day last weekend. They're missing a big edge rusher. Plus they're also missing Patrick Peterson, who's most likely won't be playing this week. I think there's still a possibility that he comes back, but I'm not sure. Vikings 18th in DVP versus the quarterback position, 26th to wide receiver. So certainly we could look for some stackable pairings there to take advantage of that. Overall, Vikings have been pretty good against the pass, but this is just a situation where they're, missing some key guys. And I think Herbert, he's so accurate that I think a big day is in the forecast. So there's got to be someone else on the high end that you're considering at least, right?
Yeah, I wrote down Josh Allen and Tom Brady just because of what we know they can do in their ceilings. And Allen, obviously, I think a lot of people are disappointed from his performance 2 weeks ago against Miami, and then obviously the complete letdown last week against Jacksonville. I will say they are getting an offensive lineman back. They're getting Dawson Knox back this week, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it is a pretty big deal to this offense. So I'm not too concerned. The betting markets aren't too concerned. I think the Bills have a big bounce back weekend. I wouldn't hesitate to pay up for Josh Allen.
Yeah, Josh Allen, I was thinking you were going to mention him. That's the guy I wrote down too. I mean, it's the Jets. Anyone can do basically anything you want against them. 32nd in DVOA versus the or overall defense, 30th in versus the pass, right? But they give up way more production to running backs, but that's just because teams, it's just the path of least resistance. They don't have to do a ton against them. But man, so that's the only worry here, is that maybe this could be a good spot for Singletary. Moss is questionable at the moment, I think. Do you know anything about him potentially coming back?
I have not heard. There hasn't been a lot of word. He was in a non-contact jersey on Thursday, which is generally a pretty good sign for the concussion protocol, and that's at least more than what the Patriots running backs have been doing. So I would expect him, but we'll get word here pretty shortly.
Yeah, but you would think, I mean, I said this last week, you would think that they were just going to get Josh Allen going, and I'm going to say the same thing this week, but who knows? It could be a game where the running backs just get in the end zone. But, that's typically not the MO of Buffalo. So I feel comfortable with Josh Allen. It was terrible that he did so poorly last week, but who cares? Write it off. We've got a better track record of him. Yeah, we've got a good track record with what he brings to the table, and that's fantasy points. I wrote maybe Tom Brady too. I mean, it is basically the nut matchup for passing, but he's so expensive and doesn't bring any of that rushing upside. It's tough. If it's like, I wanted him to be like $35, and then I would start to like that a little bit more. And, there is some value opening up in this game, so Antonio Brown's already been ruled out. Gronk's already been ruled out. Godwin is questionable. It's looking like he's going to be a true game time decision. So that certainly, Godwin and Mike Evans would be great plays. Evans could just be a lock if Godwin is out, you would think. But also, we get Tyler Johnson potentially too for the min. So, you can do it. So, I mean, if Tyler Johnson ends up as a wide receiver 2 for this team, that's a nice pairing, Brady with a wide receiver 2 for $50, so it's definitely doable. So we'll have to see how news shakes out there. And then Aaron Rodgers, I put God, with whatever he's been saying in the media and all of that. I mean, he's really it's just crazy how he went out on his little media tour after this. He should have just kept quiet. I think he's just digging like a bigger and bigger hole every week. But this could be a great game, right? It should be a fun game, Seattle and Green Bay. So we know who to pair him with for sure. Devontae, who I'm sure we'll get to in just a moment here when we take it on over to wide receiver, which I'll do now unless you have some more quarterback plays.
No, I just wanted to say that, it's so nice that we're getting Aaron Rodgers versus Russell Wilson when we very easily could have gotten Jordan Love versus Geno Smith. So I'll say that's great for game environments. And before we get to wide receiver, I just want to mention your point about Herbert against the Vikings defense and how they're so banged up. And, that is one thing you can exploit, where a lot of DFS players will look at matchups versus position, but they don't take current injuries into account. So like last week, Devonta Smith for the Eagles, the Chargers are one of the best defenses against wide receivers in the entire game, but their top 2 corners on the outside were missing from the game, which completely throws that ranking out the window. So I think being cognizant of those injuries each week can help you identify those mismatches between the season-long rankings versus their potential outlook for that week.
Yep, agree. All right, let's take it on over to. I'll throw a couple of names out there too, just for fun. I mean, I could get behind some Wentz just because of the matchup. I guess so. He would be the one more. Maybe, that's it. Wentz would be the only other guy. I'm going to have a tight pool, but I do think that this Green Bay Seattle game is going to be terribly underowned. And yes. So I think that, certainly, I mean, it wouldn't shock anyone at the end of the week if Rodgers is the QB1 or if Russell Wilson is the QB1. And Russ is saying he's like 90% healthy. At least that's what he was quoted on in the media this week. So, I mean, I doubt they'd be rolling him out there if he's not fine, right? And so, God, it certainly helps Metcalf. It certainly helps Lockett. And we can take advantage of some depressed pricing from those guys because of they've been playing with at quarterback that's dragged them down.
Absolutely. That game I'm big on. And then if you're including the other higher total games, Dak and Kirk Cousins in your tournament lineups, those are probably my top pivots at the position.
Yep. I can get behind that too. All right. Wide receiver. Top values. I wrote down some names that I'm probably not going to play. Just to stick to the protocol here. But I did write down Cortland Sutton. I don't really like it that much. I think it's a tough matchup for him, but he still is wide receiver one. I don't know. Judy is certainly on the come up here, so I could also potentially list him as a value as well. So I kind of wrote both of them down there at 16 and at 14. Pairs easily with Bridgewater. I will have Bridgewater in the baller, but won't make my main lineup. James Washington at $10 could be the Steelers wide receiver too. There's some injury situations going on there. Claypool looking doubtful, right?
Yeah, you mentioned Ben. There's your cheap pairing. Big Ben, James Washington. There's your main lineup.
Yeah, I mean, and then it's a way to get different. It's a way to, because Najee is going to be extremely popular from a running back, as he should be based on usage and whatnot. But Ben throws some touchdown passes this week, and you got a $10 James Washington. You got his main man too. Deontay Johnson, who you can always play. He's priced reasonably at 23. Or you could even, pair him with Najee. But that's that. I also wrote down Tyler Johnson to at least for a situation to monitor to see what Godwin is in or out. Regardless, he's in play at $10 regardless, just because Antonio Brown's out, but certainly we get a bigger boost if Godwin is out too. I wrote down DJ Moore because the price is so cheap, but I just don't feel very comfortable there with his quarterback. I'm glad Darnold is out, but I don't think it's much of an upgrade at QB with what's his name again?
PJ Walker. XFL PJ Walker, yep.
XFL, yep. He just looked so bad in the times he's taken the field this season too that maybe he's fine, but he does. I did read some, I can't remember where I read it, but he does have like the highest like first look percentage or something of QBs. Like he's not a QB that is able to, continue on with his reads. And so he will probably just be keyed in on DJ Moore and try to feed him the ball. But I just don't feel very confident in that. Devontae Smith is the last one I wrote down for cheapie. He I could kind of get behind just because of his target share, which is so high. He's got like a 24% target share, 40% of the team's air yards. He is the wide receiver one. Hurts just doesn't pass enough, but he looked awesome when he burned me. That was a tough matchup against the Chargers. They take away deep passing plays, and he ran some really nice routes and didn't have a problem to stick it to me last week. But you got any more?
It's kind of gross down there. So I think obviously if Godwin's out, Tyler Johnson, like you said, is by far the easiest value play. James Washington's the other one I feel okay about. The other guys, like you said, I'm just okay on. To me, the true values this week are the typical Yahoo range, that $18 to $23 range, and you get Michael Pittman, Stephon Diggs this week. Actually, his prices come way down. Deontay Johnson, I like a lot. Terry McLaurin, Jarvis Landry, and then if you're paying up a little more, Devontae Adams. So for me, my value is kind of turned into the main play section, the main preferred play section, just because I think the true value this week are those underpriced guys in that range that we're typically trying to target.
Yep. I like that. I love that the sweet spot is usually like $24, and that's where we get Diggs this week. So I love Diggs. Price drop, right? It's the Jets, 7-3 targets in eight games. Disappointing. I thought they were going to really, get them going last week. They didn't, but I'm fine running it back with a price drop this week. So I like that. Devontae Adams is the clear number one guy you want. Just feels nice and secure when you have him. A-Rod's back. Even with has been a little bit of a down year for him, but he's still fourth in air yards percentage, fourth in receiving yards, fourth in targets out of all wide receivers. The problem is he only has 3 TDs on the season, which has certainly been under than what we typically expect from him. But I expect more TDs in his future this weekend. So definitely like that. And Mike Evans is gonna. he's in play regardless. But man, I mean, how is he a must play if Godwin is ruled out?
He's getting close to that territory, right? He has to. He's got to be up there. I can't imagine Brady throwing less than 10 targets to Evans with all those other guys out. So yeah, I think he's damn near must play status if Godwin's ruled out.
Yep. And then I wrote down Keenan Allen, just because we're gonna want to pair someone with Herbert, and he's the main guy. 82 targets. No Peterson. Maybe no Breland, on the injuries that we've been discussing already. So this is a decimated defense. He's the target monster. What's Mike Williams' price this week? Did he come down?
Yeah, good question. I have not. Mike Williams.
He's $23. Both of those guys are in play.
Yeah, for sure, and definitely for tournaments. I mean, Williams. I don't know if it's the knee injury or what, but he's obviously cooled off a lot since the beginning of the year. But again, if Herbert's going to score 30 fantasy points, you have to think Mike Williams has a shot of breaking out.
Yep.
For tournaments, if you allow me, I can give a couple guys here. So I talked about Dak as a tournament option. I really like CeeDee Lamb this week as a tournament play. I don't think a lot of people will play him. AJ Brown against the Saints. DK Metcalf we got to like with Russ Wilson coming back. You mentioned Keenan Allen already, but Justin Jefferson in that same game. And then actually, I didn't mention these guys as cheaper options, but they are on the lower end of the scale, but I would only play them in tournaments. Is Zach Pascal with a 29-point team total, been getting some decent volume lately. And then our boy Jacoby Myers, who maybe finally they'll allow him to score a touchdown.
Yeah, it's maybe. Did have that 2-point conversion. That was close enough. Tyler Lockett,
yes.
$20. Gets his boy Russ back. Certainly things are looking rosier now as opposed to with Geno. Although Geno was peppering him in their last game. He had 13 targets against the Jags. So, I mean, he's just too cheap for Russ being back in this game environment. Is Jair Alexander still out?
Still out, yep.
Yep. So
fire him up.
Yeah, Lockett. He might make my main lineup. Now I'm gonna circle him just so I remember. All right. I don't really. I mean, it's like a stacked range, like you said. If we just say that $24 range, it's like Stephon Diggs is 24. Deontay Johnson is a target monster, and against the Lions for 23. A little bit more expensive if Godwin plays, 27. Certainly in play, and a little bit more expensive if Mike Evans is 30. Keenan Allen's 26. Amari Cooper's 23. CeeDee Lamb, who you love, is 26. I probably would play Lamb over Cooper too, even though he's $3 more. Pittman, 23. McLaurin is 22. Tough matchup, but an obvious bring back in this game, which could be kind of juicy. AJ Brown, 27. Justin Jefferson, 25. So like Lockett,
Stacks.
20. Mike Williams, 23. So I mean, like that's your we don't even we just fire up those with some of the value plays we just said, and that's your wide receiver pool. Yes. We don't even need to get crazy with and that's something I need to work on. I need to limit my pool better. I've been analyzing things, and I've been playing too many players.
Let's cut it down this week. We just named all the good ones, so let's stick to those guys.
All righty. All right, let's move it back up to running back. This is where we've got value galore to start. So Dearness Johnson is just a must play. If things, they said Chubb has a chance of coming back. You told me don't worry about that. It's not happening, right? Is that basically?
Yeah, it's not a guarantee, but basically any player that's been in this situation so far this year who's been on the COVID list, is vaccinated, and has been put on the list the week of a game, they haven't cleared that two negatives in 48 hours or 24 hours, whatever it is. So I wouldn't expect Chubb to be back. We don't have Kareem Hunt, which means that we get smash play Dearness Johnson.
Yep. And in week 7, both guys were out. And he had 146 yards and a TD on 22 carries plus 2 targets. The Pats have been worse against the run this year. They're 17th in DVOA versus the run. They're pretty good against the pass. 19th in DVP for running backs. So basically a top 13 most points to opposing running backs. I wrote down just simply a must play. So he's not someone I'll be fading if the situation stays the same. Mark Ingram is a different consideration. He's $14, $1 more. I just don't feel good about him in general because of his age and just been around. But, if Kamara is out, I think that is going to be the popular build, certainly with both of those two value plays. So then we can just, pick at will whatever those, all of those wide receivers that we love in the $24 to $30 range. We can just pepper them in all of our lineups. And some of them are going to go off, right? But Kamara, to his credit, to Ingram's credit, he did take up a bunch of usage last week right off the bat, which was surprising. I mean, he had 9 rushing attempts for 43 yards. The surprising thing was he had 5 receptions on 5 targets. Right. So he got good pass work, got a decent amount of rushing work. And if Kamara's out, he's going to be the guy. So I just don't know how efficient he's going to be, but it's the Tennessee defense, which although they played pretty well last week, is still a defense that we can attack. The Pats situation, you should be deferring this to me, but I want to give this to you, right? I don't know what, I can't click on Brandon Bolden. I just can't do it. I know I've seen this guy as a Pats fan for my, entire life. I've watched way too much of him and just been like, do not play Bolden. Why is Bolden in the game? And man, it's just
it could be JJ Taylor, right? I don't think we know for sure that who's going to get the most work. We think Bolden's going to get the passing game work, assuming Harris and Stevenson are out. I don't know if either one I would feel confident enough in to play in my main lineup, but you got to play both of them separately in your tournament lineups.
Well, the thing I know is they don't trust JJ Taylor.
Right.
Period. And if God forbid, if he fumbles or does anything, he just won't play again, and it will just be Bolden all game. They trust Bolden. He's a good pass blocker. And he's looked pretty well this season. So, I don't know. I probably won't do it. Ingram is certainly an easier play in my opinion, but that's a pivot right there. And then for just a couple dollars more at 17, there's Devin Singletary, and that would just be all about the matchup with the Jets. I would play head chopper against the Jets. So if he was available at running back. So Singletary, yes, Moss is banged up. Maybe if Moss misses, certainly his stock will go up for sure. But I think he was already the kind of heading towards the lead back in last week's game before Moss went down anyway. But I don't know. It's the Jets. I could certainly see him having a couple of touchdowns, but I don't know. It's the Bills' offense, so it just doesn't feel great either way because it's a passing offense that you want to play. But I got no more value other than those guys. What do you got?
Yeah, those are the values, right? It's the Cleveland situation, the New England situation, and the New Orleans situation. Buffalo if Zach Moss misses. And then you pay up a little bit more. You get into that mid-range. We have Cordell Patterson still pretty cheap. And then James Conner is probably, I guess, the best. I'm not 100% sure they give him the full workload like they did last week. I think Benjamin does get some work, especially as a 10-point favorite here. You see people talk about Conner's injury history, and he stayed healthy so far this year because they've been splitting work with Chase Edmonds. But again, it is a 10-point favorite, and his touchdown game is crazy. He's been getting so many touchdowns this year. So I think Conner's still got to be in play as one of the top options. They haven't really priced him up if his role does increase without Edmonds. So I think I'm curious to hear your thoughts on Conner and how he slots into main line of consideration.
He looked so damn good last week with 21 rushing attempts, almost got the 100 yards, but had 5 targets, 77 yards, and a touchdown against San Fran. He's going to be extremely popular. So the builds are either going to be everyone's going to play Johnson because that's a must play. Most people are going to play Najee, who we'll get to in a second. I think he's $31, but he's earned it. And then it's going to be either like Ingram, if the situation, if Kamara is out, Ingram will be popular, but James Conner will be popular. So it'll be like combinations of those 4 running backs will be the most played. And I think Conner deserved it. 77% of the snaps once Edwards went down, which was right in the beginning of the game. Carolina has been worse against the run. They've been a pretty good defense overall, but 19th in DVOA versus the run. He ran a route on 74% of passing plays. So all those key stats are, showing that he should get a really good workload. Benjamin is the one. How much he eats into that is up in the air. We don't know, but Connor will be the goal line guy, should be the goal line guy, right? And has just such touchdown equity, and $21 is just a little too cheap for the situation. So I'm definitely on board. I do think Najee Harris is deserved of the top overall play. Detroit is just poor defensive squad, 25th in DVOA versus the run, 31st in DVP against RB. So they've allowed the second most fantasy points to running backs. He's averaged just about 24 carries per game over the last 4, 82% of the snaps last week, which was down, right? That's a good number to be down.
Yes.
All right. So it just shows how crazy he's just on the field. Ben hasn't been very good for a long time. Harris has been getting more efficient each and every week. He leads all running backs in expected fantasy points per game. So I think the situation is going to make him a clear play that everyone's going to want. So you can get different, but it's going to be those 4 guys. You did mention Cordero Patterson, who I also love. He's $22, has to be in consideration. And just because of his huge passing role. It's a great game environment, but he leads all running backs in receiving yards plus receiving TDs by a long margin. And that's because he's basically a wide receiver out there who also gets some running back carries. So, he's definitely in play. I think we've seen some of his ceiling games. So it's there. A guy that, is definitely not popular in the media these days. But we can look the other way for fantasy, for DFS. Dalvin Cook is $32, right? Just $1 more than Najee, and playing the Chargers in a game that we love, who we're going to be on Herbert, and we're going to want to bring back. And Jefferson will be a popular bring back. Thielen should be a popular. Probably won't be too popular, but should be used. And then the Chargers just allow you to run. And so Chargers are dead last in DVOA versus the run. They've allowed the 5th most fantasy points to running backs, and Dalvin is capable of putting up a monster game. So I think he should be discussed, and I think Jonathan Taylor should also be discussed versus the Jags on the high end.
Yeah. So a couple things. One, just as you were talking, we just got word, and we're recording this at 2:30 on Friday Eastern. Nick Chubb is officially ruled out, so we don't have to worry about any monitoring throughout the weekend. He's out, so we get lock button Dearness Johnson. So that's good to go. We can move forward with knowing that that's going to be a thing. 2, you mentioned Dalvin Cook, an absolutely amazing pivot away from Najee Harris. Love that. We talk about it kind of each week as we get some of these cheaper and mid-range running backs. I think especially this week with so many cheaper running backs, we get lowered ownership on those stud guys or those higher-end guys. Dalvin, Zeke, Eckler after last week, McCaffrey, even if his snap share increases a bit coming back from injury, Jonathan Taylor, all those guys. I did want to ask you, though, just kind of a little strategy question. How often are you flexing a running back in your main preferred lineup?
Pretty often.
Okay.
In my main preferred lineup, it's usually most of the time.
Okay.
Because there's just always decent, good plays, and they just have such touchdown equity on the site, and which is better. It's same with the FanDuel scoring, Yahoo scoring, as opposed to DK, where we can really get a lot out of the passing game with point per reception. So you want touchdowns, and running backs usually have the highest touchdown equity. I mean, it really all depends. There's certain weeks when we come on here and we're I don't like last week. I think I was I don't like any of the plays, right?
Yeah.
So certainly on a week like that, I can get a little bit different with wide receivers. So take what the slate gives you, but I usually have mainly a running back in my main preferred lineup in the flex.
And I asked that because I've been playing mostly running backs in the flex for these small field contests that I've been running on Yahoo. So I just want to make sure I wasn't straying anything from Yahoo if there's any quirks. Because again, like you said on FanDuel, you're normally doing that in the smaller contests and low risk stuff. So just want to make sure I was on the right track there.
You're on the right track. This week, there's phenomenal plays at each position though this week. So it's it's not a mistake to put a wide receiver in there if he's a solid play. All right, what do we got now?
Real quick,
we got
before we move.
Yep.
Yeah, but I was gonna say before we move on, I just wanted to get your one opinion. Normally, you have some running back that you really like pivoting away from the field for your main preferred lineup. To me, it sounds like you're leaning Dalvin. Is that your pivot that you're looking at?
That's certainly a thought, right? Like that was my first inkling. But I'll even like look at some builds too. But if I could get like Najee and Dalvin, but that I would probably have to come down at quarterback, or I would probably have to come down at wide receiver. And I don't really like I mentioned value guys, but I don't like any of them, right? So That's probably not. It's just going to lead me to probably playing one of these guys. But so it could very well that's going to be something I'll be like analyzing myself and going back and forth in my brain. Like, should I play Dalvin over be like the only one with Dalvin in all of these 10-man contests against Najee? And I may very well be doing that this week. And we'll see what we get to with news.
Cool.
But yeah. All right. Tight end is kind of gross this week.
Yes.
Right? So we don't have Waller. We don't have Kelsey. Not that they've really even produced that great, but I don't know. It just never really feels good. So the chalk is going to be Kyle Pitts at $21. He's 57 targets on the season. Targets have been on the rise here lately. Cowboys is certainly a game matchup that we want to take pieces of. You love CeeDee Lamb. This would be a logical bring back in like Dak Lamb stacks. He's going to be the chalk to what he's probably. I might take a stand and fade him because I don't know. I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, so you got to like the usage, right? Basically being a wide receiver at tight end. He's $21. That's the most expensive realistic tight end we're going to play this week with all those other guys out. However, as we've seen recently, they have been putting better corners on him. They've been putting more defensive attention on him. And for a rookie wide receiver, it's a lot in general. For a rookie tight end playing wide receiver, it's even more. So I think there's definitely some merit to fade him just because the volatility in the position. And there are some guys that are a little bit cheaper that we like. Or you can go down to Goddard, who's had an amazing target share since Zach Ertz left. And now we just need him to throw more than 15 times a game. So I get it. I totally get it. Obviously Pitts is going to be owned for a reason, but there's certainly ways that he fails.
And the matchup is great. From a DVOA's perspective, they are dead last against the tight ends. This could be a game where they're forced into a heavy passing game attack, which is what they want to do anyway. They don't want to be jamming Mike Davis down anybody's throats, obviously, who's just gotten extremely inefficient each week that's gone on, Mike Davis. So certainly they could be passing a lot with Cordero Patterson and Pitts. So he's the main play. My first inkling is this is where I want to make take my stand and be different, but maybe I'm wrong. But like Dallas Goedert, like who you mentioned, certainly fits the bill for me. The problem is it's a really tough matchup against the Broncos. They're second in DVP to tight end positions. They've limited production every year. They're just always limiting production to tight ends, but it's no different this year. But the thing is that he's had a team high 18 targets tied with Devontae Smith over the last 3 games. He is like it's him and Devontae Smith for their leading passing weapons. But I also did say that Hurts just hasn't been throwing the ball, a ton. So there are some warts there. I think Noah Fant is interesting with Albert O banged up, coming back here. Eagles allow the most fantasy points to tight ends. So matchup certainly on our side here. He's, has 53 targets on the season, which is a lot, only 37 receptions, but Bridgewater is pretty accurate. So I think, he should be on the rise here. Kind of scares me a little bit, but it is what it is. Dalton Schultz would be the other guy here with no Blake Jarwin in the game environment that we want. It's an easy just a kind of an easy pivot away from Pitts to just take the other side here. 95% of the snaps with no Jarwin. Atlanta allows the 12th most fantasy points to tight end. So those are the guys I wrote down. And then the last I wrote down was Ricky Seals-Jones. If Logan Thomas is out, and it sounds like he's going to be out again, he's $11. So that could be a spot to play. You know, I could feel fine with him and as a value spot if I can get my overall build, make it a much stronger overall build, because I don't know. I want to fade Kyle Pitts.
I honestly like the bottom tier a little bit this week. You mentioned Ricky Seals-Jones, so Logan Thomas not going to come back this week. Ricky Seals-Jones going to play 99% of the snaps again. Without Gronk, without potentially Godwin, I like OJ Howard a little bit. We saw a big game from him when they were last on the field and Gronk was out, so I can get behind that play. And then Dan Arnold, which it sounds gross, but he's like leading that team in targets for some reason. So ever since they traded for him, and ever since DJ Chark went down, they've been peppering Arnold with targets. So I like him too. I think there are a lot of different ways to play the tight end position. I think TJ Hawkinson goes way overlooked if you're looking for a pivot in that higher range. Again, they should be throwing against Pittsburgh. And, you know, we've seen the big games from Hawk before. What about Pat Freiermuth, who's just apparently the new Gronk with his touchdown scoring? I think Ebron's back this week, so we probably can't play him. But, hell, they're targeting him a ton too down near the red zone. And without Claypool.
I don't think Ebron will really matter.
He shouldn't, right? I mean, like, Freiermuth's been great.
But the only problem is just like there's too many plays. In that, right? We like Najee. I guess in lineups we don't play Najee. We should put maybe more of a premium on Fry or whatever.
Fry or whatever. I like it. Dawson Knox maybe, right? He's coming back. He should be back to a full-time role. So I think there are tons of pivots, different varying price points to fit your lineup, which to me, I don't think you necessarily have to play Pitts at his ownership.
And to speak to your to play about Dan Arnold, you know, the Jaguars do play at the fastest pace in the league. And, you know, so they're always in usually, I wouldn't say always because of last week, but usually in passing game scripts where they need to just throw. And so he's kind of been like a garbage time hero, Dan Arnold, for him with all those targets. So I could get behind that too. Yeah, I think so. Just since we've done this show, I think tight end is going to be the spot that I want to make my stand and like fade Kyle Pitts, but maybe I'm dumb and maybe I should just eat the chalk and do it somewhere else. But that's certainly going to be in contention. Dalvin Cook is certainly going to be in contention for fading Najee. Like, these are some of the ways I'm just starting to think. So we'll see what I end up with on Sunday. All right, so we've nailed all of that unless you got any more, but who's your favorite stack?
Favorite stack is probably, I think, yeah, I'm going to say, I'll go with the Matt Ryan side. Matt Ryan side of that game, 55-point total. With the reduced pressure with Randy Gregory out, it bumps their outlook pretty significantly, I think, in the passing game. So Matt Ryan should have to throw 40-plus times here. So Matt Ryan, CPAT, Kyle Pitts, whoever you want to pair with them, running back with CeeDee Lamb. That's my preferred stack.
I like it. I think I'm going to make mine. I think I'm going to play some angry Aaron Rodgers this week.
I like it.
And easy pairing with Devontae. But like people there's going to be so many lineups are just going to have Devontae, and they're not going to be paired with Rodgers. So like that's just a way to make it different right off the bat. And if he does have a good game, Rodgers is certainly going to probably be having a good game too. That's going to be a sneakier game. I just don't think it's going to get a bunch of ownership. I think we got to play some Russ to Lockett as well. Russ to DK, who's a little bit more expensive at 29, but that price at 20 on Lockett, if he goes off, could just be a real way to catapult up the leaderboards.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any last words?
No, again, I'll say what I said at the beginning. I think this is an amazing week. I see big things in store for not just us, but our listeners as well. Anytime we get clear game stacks and cheap running backs, it generally means fireworks for tournaments. So I'm super pumped, and I can't wait to see how the week unfolds.
Yeah, I'm pumped too. I got to tighten my pool. Got to make a couple of big decisions to be a little bit different and all the 10-man stuff. And hopefully we'll both be printing some money.
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. This has been the RG DFS Tournament Takes podcast, week 10, and we'll catch you back next week for week 11. Thanks.